How would you summarize it to someone who's never heard of it?
It's an epic historical action-adventure show where an unlikely trio go back in time to stop this guy from possibly destroying history.
When you say that, is it just the history? Because it seemed to me that they teased a little bit about if something happens in the future based on, the book. I mean, is that possible? Is it going to go back and forth, or can you say that?
Well, we don't know the full timeline of the whole series, what they've got thought out, but I mean, obviously anything is possible. I've heard them say they want to stick to history for right now because it's so rich, but obviously something is happening in the future because
there's implications.
The beautiful thing is when we go back to past and we change something and we come back to the present, we see that change. So we have to have our calendar, our writer's calendar, that's going to tell us this new future, this new present, from episode to episode. So we're going to keep changing. Some changes are going to be very small. They're going to be almost funny. Some are going to be dramatic. Some are going to be huge. So it's not so much that we're going to be going into the future, how much we're going to be changing our existing present. So when Garcia Flynn goes to the past, they need to go immediately after him, because the second he changes the past, only people who are with him in that past are not going to be affected. So the team is able to come back and see the changes. And everybody else, like if somebody owns the time machine today and make a change, we're not going to be aware of that because that's our history just changed.
Right.
But for them, our team comes back and they immediately ask the people in the room, okay, what happened on this and this date? And they say, oh, that's not how it's supposed to happen. So there's a lot of that going on. It's going to be very exciting, and you can always see the real events happening in the beginning of the episode, and then what actually happened is going to follow.
At the end of the pilot, we saw how the situation with Hindenburg affected Lucy. We didn't see how it impacted Rufus and Wyatt's life. So is this going to be an evolving thing in addition to the chasing, after Flynn? Is this going to be a thing where we continue to see how your lives are impacted as well?
I think so. I mean, I think we'll continue to see how what Goran was saying, how everyone is impacted by subtle changes, but I think you'll probably see things that have happened to Rufus and Wyatt. I mean, right now the pilot focused on her losing her sister.
And the mother, the situation with
right.
Not losing her mother.
Yeah. So that was kind of Lucy's moment, but I think we'll find out how we're impacted, if at all. Maybe we wouldn't be, but I'm sure we heard Wyatt talk about his wife, and she died in the past. And, that's in the back of his head. And he's probably going to try to do something to bring her back. That's honestly my speculation, because I've only read a couple of episodes, but I would assume.
Well, and that's also the beauty of it, is that it doesn't rely simply on this sort of butterfly effect thing. The changes aren't just, sister no longer existing and mother suddenly regaining consciousness. It's also how we develop as people. Like, as a result of me going on this trip, I have sort of a newfound confidence, and I'm changed, and I'm learning about myself. He's learning who he loves, who he trusts. We're all going through these experiences that aren't necessarily just on a sci-fi level, but also on an emotional level.
Well, what decade are you most looking forward to, each of you, going back to? Particularly since they make you wear the costume.
You get such a great line. This can go on.
Nothing I know.
I don't want to milk this thing, but all the black people know we don't want to go. Yesterday's too far.
It's like 1989.
I always go anything before Thriller is I don't want to do it. But as an observer, I'm a big art fan, so I love every time there's a change in art. I sort of love it. The Renaissance and seeing Leonardo da Vinci and all these sort of great epic moments in music and history, seeing punk music and funk music and all these sort of things. Those are the things that excite me. Is being able to see when Bad Brains started out, or Rolling Stones, or the Beatles, and all these sorts of things, and seeing these people break these molds. All of those time periods are exciting to me.
I would love to see something, hugely massive scale, like the reach of the Roman Empire, how massive that was, and all the technologies that they had invented, running water through aqueducts and all this crazy stuff. I'd love to see that.
Well, Renaissance is my favorite time. My hometown is back home in Croatia was like the biggest beginning of the city. Second beginning was the Renaissance time, so I was always kind of like walking amongst those buildings, and I was like wondering how would that look like. And everything is built out of stone and this and that. But then often I remember they didn't have plumbing. About 1450, there was the huge plague that killed 70% of the population of my hometown. So you're gonna think about those. I'm like, I kind of prefer watch the TV show or get a good history book. But one of my favorite movies is The Right Stuff, for example. And imagine that President Kennedy comes on the stage and say, "We're gonna go to the moon like in this period of time," and it's like what? 8-9 years, we go from zero to a hero. We land to the moon, and now we are like, such a slow progress with like space exploration and everything. So like that time was kind of golden time of space exploration in a way. It would be, I don't know what will we do there, but it would be nice to be a part of there. Imagine watching live landing on a moon landing.
It looks like your character might get that, since they kind of tease that too.
It's not allowed to talk past that.
I know, I understand.
Well, and it's also interesting because there's so many different histories. Like Goran, it's always fun to be around him because he reminds me of a more global scale. I think it's interesting to delve into the American history, and I think we have such a rich history, and it's going to be interesting to see how we go into that, and it's also interesting to see how it's affected the world and how the world has affected us in all these other different places. So I think, and that feels like a long-term goal, like is exploring all these other different places. So it's pretty amazing.
Speaking of goals.
Speaking of goals,
Each of your characters has their own goals. How would you describe them? At least based on what you know so far.
How would I describe my character's goals?
Yeah.
My goal is to stay home. That is. I mean, my character's sort of everyman. Like he doesn't have like, this guy's a soldier. These guys very much are driven by an ideology and going after this. And my character really he likes being behind the desk. He likes being at a computer. And so that's sort of the interesting thing about them. They're all sort of fish out of water in different ways. But my character really wants to be home. He really wants to like kiss a girl. You know what I mean? So having this type of individual go into the past who isn't excited to be the hero, but is forced to be in certain occasions is probably the most interesting part for me to play.
At the end of the pilot, we saw, you struck me as the good guy. I don't want to do this. Oh my God! And you are the guy who ostensibly wants to wipe out, the country. But there was a moment where you, at the very end, it seemed more introspective to me than plotting evil. And then you went off, and it was like, wait a minute. Now I'm feeling kind of, I have an emotional connection to you, and so are we going to get to see some of that too, where nobody's stuck?
Yeah, there's no, in typical form for these guys, for me, it feels like there's never truly a hero and never truly a villain. It's always people who are motivated by what they believe in, period, no matter where that may lie.
We really have great writers, and they're going to make sure they make these characters real. And you need to keep that in mind. So the show is going to be on a big scale. We're doing a big fun show, big production values, this and that, but the characters are going to be real. They're going to be grounded. They're going to be real people. So about villain or good guy, we'll see what's happening.
I wanted to go back to your goals question about Wyatt, because I find it interesting that I think on the surface, he's military Delta Force. You would think his goal is to accomplish the mission, and I think that is his goal on the surface. But I actually think that Wyatt has lost a lot in his life and doesn't really have much else. So I don't know that he has a whole lot of goals on a deeper level. And I think that might be what makes him good for this mission. Because he can go rogue and he doesn't have a lot to live for at this moment,
What are you looking forward to people seeing from the pilot?
Looking forward to people saying about
Seeing. You know, what are you excited for people
Yeah.
to see about the pilot?
Interesting. I think the pilot is fun. I think it's adventurous. It reminds me of Indiana Jones. It reminds me of Spielberg. That's why I'm an actor, is because I love that adventurous thing. And you know, I think our pilot sort of did it. And episode 2 feels very much the same tone.
My favorite thing about the pilot and about the show in general, I'm a bit of a history buff. I like to read about history. I liked it back in school, but when you read the pilot and the next episode and the next episode, even if you're not that, you're going to ask yourself, oh my God, is this how it really happened? I mean, is this the event that this is how our history books recorded it? And sometimes you're going to really be surprised, because we're going to be pulling some things from history that were not well known, but they're the fact. And you can almost be forced afterwards to go on Wikipedia or take the book and just double check, and you're going to be, oh my God, how stupid humans were just 50 years ago. Or you're going to be, I can't believe that person like this existed 150 years ago. It was so advanced and so smart and so that's one of my, I get goosebumps when I think about that, like episode about Abraham Lincoln. I mean, so many questions are going to be raised there without spoiling it or anything. And I think it's really, we're bringing something so exciting to the audience. I can't believe actually that they start watching it and really seeing it. I want to know what people think. I really think it's going to be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think people will be surprised at the scale, both in terms of the places we visit and the scenery and the backdrops, as well as the emotion that comes behind all of it. I think it does a really good job of balancing the epic adventure and the emotional stability and instability of the characters.
And there was some comedy in there too.
Yeah, and sometimes it makes some shit up. It's hilarious.